All right, we are going to go into some generic chain rule. The last couple like algebraic chain rule pieces that I want to finish up with before we jump into trig is what do we do when we are presented with a chain rule in a table format or in a visual format. So that's what this video is going to be. So this one is asking you to do a chain rule, and the way you can tell is by the way the original function is written that you need to derive that it's written as a composite, f of g of x. So here you really need to think about what the derivative actually looks like when you do it. So your derivative of a composite function, you take the derivative of the outside and you're going to keep the inside the same. So you're going to take the derivative of your f function, because that's outer, and then keep that inner function as g, and then times the derivative of what's inside. So that's your generic form that we would have looked at earlier in earlier videos. So then you want to plug 2 in. So here's where the table comes in. So you're going to have f prime of g of 2 times g prime of 2. Best advice I can give you is work inside out. So start by figuring out what g of 2 is. So you're going to go to your table, you're going to go to the g column. G of 2 is negative 10. So that's going to be f prime of negative 10, and then times g prime of 2. That's the only piece that has to be done first. After that, you really have a lot of flexibility. So now I want to find f prime of 10. So f prime is this, or negative 10. This column, this is my negative 10. So f prime of negative 10 is negative 3. And g prime of 2 is negative 11. So my answer will just be a numeric value. It is 33. So that is a table example. I'm going to do one more of those just so you get to kind of feel comfortable with it. So again, we have a composite function. So the derivative is the outside derivative, keeping the inside the same, times the derivative of what's inside. We are trying to evaluate the derivative at 5. So we're going to have f prime of g of 5 times g prime of 5. So again, work inside out. So figure out g of 5 first. So g of 5 is 7. So you get f prime of 7 times g prime of 5. So then go to my table again, f prime column, f prime of 7 is 4. It's this value. And then g prime of 5, that's this value, is 6. So my final answer is 24. So then let me show you a picture. So here's another way that they can ask you to do a chain rule, but have it be visual. We've done some visual product rules and quotient rules, so this is similar. Again, we want to start with deriving our composite function. So the derivative of the outside, keeping the inside the same, times the derivative of what's inside. So then I'm going to, again, work inside out. I want to find out what's happening at 3. So I need to figure out g prime, or g of 3. G of 3. So I'm going to put my 3's in there. So now let me explain how you do it from a visual standpoint. So you still work inside out. The first thing you need to do is figure out g of 3. So g of 3, this is your g graph. This is your g graph. This is your f graph. G of 3, you're going to go over to 3 on the x-axis, and you're going to see where the function is. And it looks like, I'm going to use a little pointer here to show it. Looks like g of 3 is right here. It's negative 3. So I'm going to have negative 3 put in there, and then g prime of 3. Now I need to find f prime of negative 3. So now I'm going to go to my f equation, and I'm going to look for the slope, because that's what the derivative is, at negative 3. So I'm going to go to negative 3. Here's negative 3. I'm going to come up to this piece at negative 3, and I'm going to figure out the slope of it. It has to be linear. They can't ask you to do something that's not. The slope of this is 1. It's going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So that's 1. And then g prime of 3, so it's going back to that same little spot on the g graph, but this time it wants the slope. The slope is also 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, so I get 1 times 1, which is 1. So when you're doing them visually, keeping in mind when it asks you to find f or g of an x value, that is just the y value. When it's asking you to find an f prime or a g prime of a particular number, that is asking for the slope of the function at that x value. And that's how you do generic, both table and visual chain rules.